everyone. It's been a hot minute since I've been coming to you with a new indie book review, but I'm here today to introduce to you my reading snake for 2025. This little guy is going to be coming with me all through the year. These are all the books that I read in January. Each color corresponds to a different genre of book that I read. So far we have mystery, fantasy, horror, graphic novel, or manga, and another mystery. But today I am excited to talk about the first book that I have finished in February, and it is this book, Tempest Take Me Home by author Charlie Rose. And as it is a fantasy novel, we're going to be using Burnat's Pow Purple for their blanket brights. Now, unfortunately, this yarn is also 100% polyester, which means it is 100% plastic. However, it's so much softer than I ever imagined that it could be. And while I prep this round and begin to talk to you about the book, I want to go over some housekeeping notes super duper fast. So as you've noticed, it's been a hot minute since I've uploaded anything to my YouTube, let alone something having to do with reading or book reviews. But I am still reading, always reading. And I'm hoping to be able to start making these kinds of videos more frequently, especially as it pertains to indie authors, because that is my bread and butter. That's who I care about, as an indie author myself, as it were. That being said, historically, I have been using the term indie author spotlight to talk about the amazing independently written and published stories that we read here on my channel. However, I've also noticed that a number of other accounts who are more established and who update more frequently have also been using indie spotlight or something similar to that to describe essentially the same thing that they're doing. So I'm thinking of renaming this playlist. Any suggestions that anyone may have, please leave down in the comments. I definitely don't want to seem like I am trying to be derivative of someone else's content or ideas. Like, whether I came up with the idea first or not, these people have been steadily posting and their work deserves to be seen. Not saying don't go follow them or go harass them or anything like that. Not like I have a big enough following that anyone would do that anyway. But again, I don't want to seem like I am stealing someone else's ideas, because that would just be a super jerk move, and we are not about that here on this channel. But without further ado, I want to get into Tempest Take Me Home. So this is this author's debut novel, which is exciting, like in and of itself, and a debut novel. And for it to be as well written as it is as a debut is absolutely phenomenal. I know that this author is somewhat famous on the internet for a number of things, including comments about ketchup pre-cum, but also for a project that they undertook over the course of 5 years, which was a incredible Mass Effect fan fiction that spanned the course of the 3 games and followed not only the adventures of, but the romantic relationship between Commander Shepard and Garrus Vakarian, who, I mean, let's face it, there is no better space alien boyfriend. And that project, available on AO3, which I definitely recommend a read of whether you are a fan of the game or not, spans over 3 million words. And it's just an incredible piece of work. So Charlie Knight has also dedicated at least a decade, probably more, of their lives to independent publishing, editing, and stories. They have been an enormous resource on Patreon and other websites for independent authors who are maybe just starting out, or even those who have been writing for a while. I myself started years and years and years ago, and I still find myself turning to Charlie time and again for advice, ideas. So, whether you enjoy reading fantasy stories or not, and whether you want to pick up their book or not, if you are an indie writer and just need that little extra boost, I highly recommend finding them on Patreon. I will try to link them down in the description. Again, fantastic resource, a endless font of knowledge when it comes to reading, writing, and publishing. Just absolutely stunning. So, before I get into the story for Tempest Take Me Home, I want to talk a little bit about the technical aspects of it, the type of prose that we're looking at, the style, as it were, tone, voice, all of that. So, Tempest Take Me Home is a dual POV story. It follows the POVs of Max, who is a trans disabled man who can also do a little bit of magic. It's very cool. It's also a type of magic. It's a magic system that I had never seen before and something that I was excited to explore. I genuinely hope that Charlie creates more stories within this universe so that we can see more of the magic system that they began putting into place. But Max is a magical cartographer and uses his magic to help find hidden objects, treasure, that kind of stuff. And they are partners with a trans non binary person named Eli, who is an absolute delight, honestly. Eli is a treasure hunter, not a pirate. They go to great lengths time and again to ensure that we, the readers, as well as, characters who interact with Eli and their crew, that they're not pirates. Although, how cool would it be if they were, right? So, usually dual POVs I have a difficult time with when they are written in first person because the authors who do this don't always have distinct voices for those characters, even though they're written in first person. It tends to mostly end up being like the same sort of like personality behind both characters, and that is not the case in Tempest Take Me Home. So Eli and Max are very different people with very different goals and different things in mind. Max, who again is disabled, not rides around, moves around in a wheelchair. Which, again, anytime that we include disability aids, things like wheelchairs in fantasy stories, I'm always excited to see that. Obviously, things like that are more easy to imagine in contemporary stories or even sci fi. And so getting to see it in fantasy is always a delight. Sometimes wheelchairs will be able to move forward via magic, other times it's simple mechanics. And in Tempest Take Me Home, I got the impression that it was simple mechanics versus magic, just by the way it's described. Especially because as Max joins Eli on Tempest, which is their treasure hunting ship, a lot of different considerations and alterations to the ship have to be made in order for Max to move about safely, which is another thing I sincerely appreciated about this book. Charlie Knight is also a disabled reader, writer, editor, and book reviewer. And they were able to bring a lot of their personal knowledge and personal experiences to the table when writing characters like Max. The way that Max is able to navigate life, interact with other people, it's all like, especially if you are a disabled reader or writer, I think whether you are a wheelchair user or not, you can definitely find things to relate to in Max. I myself have fibromyalgia, and while I maintain my mobility most days, the pain that Max describes experiencing on a daily basis is something I very much relate to. And I felt like it was described in such a way that anyone with chronic pain, regardless of mobility, is going to be able to relate to. Anytime something like that happens in a story, it's a huge bonus. Moving on, gender is also another thing that is discussed widely within the story, either referring to times when characters were still learning about their gender, or the, gender dysphoria that they may experience, being sorry, being wrongfully gendered, or even like dead named is something that is talked about within the story. And I think any queer reader is also going to be able to relate to that, regardless of their personal gender identity. I felt like the prose was very well done. It definitely was engaging and fast paced. I had a hard time putting it down, honestly. I would have finished it in a single night. I actually read almost half of it in a single sitting. But, life of a disabled working mom is something that takes a lot of time and energy. So it took me longer than one sitting to finish the story. However, the prose is also very approachable. It's accessible. It doesn't use a lot of particularly flowery language or like five-syllable words, as I've heard people refer to those types of that type of language. So readers of any like ability should have an easy time reading and accessing Tempest Take Me Home, which I think is another like flawless example of how well Charlie Knight has done their research, proven time and again that they are capable of making a story that is relatable and accessible to a wide audience. One thing that the author has said they are nervous about with publishing this story is that because the main romance in this book is a T for T established romance, that people may not be as interested in it. And to that, I say poo poo. I, again, could barely put this book down. I think any queer reader is going to be enthralled by the way that Max and Eli interact not only with themselves and each other and friends, allies, and enemies alike, but also their mutual boyfriend Tevin, who is an orc, and honestly, such a sweetheart. Like, I want to hang out with Tevin and just drink hot cocoa and like cookies and stuff because he feels like a big old teddy bear and I love him so much. And while there is a established romance as well as polyamory within the story, there is a degree of spice, which, can't say I dislike that. Always down for a little bit of spice in my stories. But that's not the main focus of the book, which I also really appreciated. I feel personally as if the indie indie scene right now is being flooded by mostly spicy books. And that's not to say that I don't like spicy books or don't think people can or should write spicy books, but I want to also read other things. I have other interests outside of spicy books. And while that may not be the case for everyone, or needs to be the case for everyone, being able to also go on a high seas adventure looking for magic items is a real delight amidst all of the books like Lights Out or Her Soul to Take or things of that nature. So from here on out, in this video, I'm going to be getting into a couple of spoilers for the book. So if you are not interested in that aspect of this video, please feel free to navigate away or, pause this video and come back to it after you have been able to purchase the book, which is coming out next month. My copy was an advanced reader
Laura,
copy.
I require your tiny lady fingers.
Okay.
My fingers are just too big. I need you to tie that knot 2 more times.
From like this side or just in general?
Just in general. My fingers are literally too big to form the knot.
Oh, the things I do for love.
Tie a knot? Like, that's so much.
What? Yes. How dare you ask so many things of me with my little brain.
Sorry to interrupt your recording.
That's
I
okay.
thought you were streaming.
I am streaming.
Are you?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a stream. So Twitch lets you just upload directly to YouTube after you're done. And since I can't get my video editor thing to work, I was just gonna do that.
Is anybody watching your stream?
I don't know. I wasn't looking at comments the way I normally would. I was just like talking about Charlie's book. My phone. Thief.
Yep.
Here's your knot.
Thank you.
You're on my snake. I need that. Thank you.
I wanted to see who was on your stream.
Ah, okay. Shit, I don't know where I was before you burst in here. Oh, I guess I was mentioning how this was an ARC read. Charlie is a really good friend of mine. They edited my last story, The Red Pen of Fate, and if I'm lucky, they'll be able to edit my future projects. Love you, bye!
I love you.
And I wanted to also beta read this story, but unfortunately at that time I had too many things going on and I wasn't able to get it in the turnaround that Charlie was looking for. But I was lucky enough to be able to get an advanced reader copy of this story so that I could read and enjoy and talk about it before the book officially launches in March, which honestly, what a delight. What an amazing thing that I got to do. I am still like kind of reeling from it that like my opinion on a story is important enough to be able to like get an advanced reader copy and then come online and talk about. Like, I don't know. I feel genuinely like lucky to be in that position as a reader, writer, book reviewer, however you want to label it. Anyway, now that I'm done tooting my own horn, so Tempest Takes Me Home starts with Eli and their crew being able to gather the first of the 8 elements of the gods. Now, in the story, we hear a little bit about this, and while it is the main adventure hook, I felt like the majority of the story was centered around the interpersonal relationships of the 2 main characters and the friends and allies they have on the crew, outside of the crew, as well as the main antagonist, Cross Fields, who's a gross homophobic piece of shit. To put it mildly. I can't get the hook through this loop. Come on. There we go. So, in any case, At the time, they don't know that it is one of the eight elements of the god. All they know is that it is a magic gem that they've been paid to collect, and Max, the cartographer that helps them find these amazing treasures, is waiting for them back at the port where they make birth. And ugh, there's also like a big payday waiting for them. So, shortly after the crew of the Tempest is able to recover this gem, which again, they don't know is like the catalyst for a grander adventure, uh, they come home. We get to meet Max, who is an absolute sweetheart, and see a little bit of his life when Eli isn't around. So we get to see them both separately and together throughout the course of the book. The other thing I really love about their relationship is, for the most part, they have phenomenal communication with one another. It's a long established relationship. They've been together essentially since they were children, and so they've been with each other through everything from poverty to gender identity to like the adventures that they are having now, navigating disability. They have an extremely strong, loving bond that I loved reading about every single moment. And a kind of not really miscommunication. I wouldn't describe it as that. 99.9% of the time, Eli is really great about ensuring that Max retains independence and is in charge of his own safety, life, and body. There is one time where I forgot. By the way, my crochet hook lights up. It's a really cool thing. It also has a stitch and round counter that I'm not using right now because I don't necessarily need it, but it's really cool for larger projects. Um, Not sponsored. I just really love this crochet hook. It was a Christmas present from my mother-in-law. I love her. Anyway, there is one moment when Eli is like, "Hey, lover." They don't say lover. But, they are making birth in a port that is like notoriously unsafe, and they're concerned for the safety of Max, who has never been to this place. And while Max ultimately understands where Eli is coming from, he is like distinctly wounded by Eli's lack of faith and like ability to give Max the autonomy that they deserve to make those decisions himself. Sorry. In any case, uh and while they're able to kind of get through that little blunder easily enough, later in the story, there is a much more significant instance when the antagonist of the story, Crossfields, all but, well, not even all but, literally threatens to kidnap Max away from Eli and the crew of Tempest. And rather than take precautions and keep Max safe and close at hand, Eli makes the decision for them to put them back in the home where, Max usually is living by himself, waiting for Eli to come home between like missions and adventures. And it creates a very obvious rift between the two characters for a little bit of time. However, it quickly becomes apparent that dropping Max off back at home was the wrong decision, because Crossfields immediately shows up and kidnaps Max. This book reads to me as a little bit cozier than I might otherwise expect from a high adventure, fast-paced story. Most of the like dangerous and violent situations are circumvented through cleverness, which, I always love. And there's a handful of like tense situations where there's the chance that the characters are going to be caught in the midst of doing something they're not supposed to be doing, such as stealing a ugly but precious painting that has one of the like orbs that they're looking for, one of the elements of the gods. And rather than being found out, they managed to get away without any incident, which, like, good for them. It goes to show just like how like clever the crew is and how capable they are. And there is some magic at play. More than one character is capable of using magic. But because a lot of those situations are like, oh yeah, you think it's gonna be like, okay, anything that could go wrong or anything that can go wrong will, and it doesn't. But that doesn't take away from the overall story. Rather, it continues to add, again, what I would call an element of coziness to the read. I lost my train of thought. That's how it is with the ADHD. Uh, this book also has a very diverse cast of characters, not only in terms of uh, sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, uh, like uh, race, but also in like species, as it were. So the story, the two main characters, Max and Eli, as well as the nemesis that they face cross fields, are all humans. However, the crew of the Tempest also has a number of elves, orcs, and halflings. Oh, and dwarves on its crew. Uh, Most of them are just like really, really plays into the type of character that you would expect from those races via the usual fantasy tropes. We have a grumpy dwarf, a halfling who, has a really peppy personality and is, always loves cooking and whatnot. We have an elf who is danger incarnate, essentially. And then we have Tevin and Dava, the orcs, who are like intimidating just by the nature of being orcs. And I love that to a degree. It definitely allows readers who have certain expectations to have those expectations met in a way. But a lot of those characters also surprise us in many ways because, again, we have Tevin, who is an orc, but also like an absolute sweetheart. We have Jax, who is a grumpy old dwarf, but is a like also a sweetheart because a lot of the antagonization that Jax has with Eli is like in an effort to stop Eli, who has a massive anxiety and overthinking problem, from being lost in that anxiety and overthinking. Yen is like the ultimate danger noodle, but also has adorable pink fingernails. uh, And so everyone, in some ways, follows a lot of the same tropes that you would expect, but in other ways breaks those tropes. And so that was really wonderful and refreshing to see in various ways. I feel like I'm running out of things to say about Tempest Take Me Home, other than that it was an incredible read that I could barely put down. My one and only criticism, which you'll also see on my story graph review, is that I felt like the main adventure hook of finding the elements of the gods could have been like shown to us in a prologue. The way that we learn about them is mostly through exposition and recall, which doesn't necessarily hurt the story, but it does make me just wish that we'd had an opportunity to learn a little bit more about it so that we could be more excited about that particular aspect of the adventure. Uh, so Tempest Take Me Home by Charlie Knight is going to be coming out sometime in March in ebook and paperback. I'll definitely be picking up my own copy as kind of like a little book trophy, because I do that. And I'm hoping to be able to support Charlie in more ways beyond this. Feel free to follow me on Storygraph at any point, where I post tons of reviews, and I believe my reading journal is also open to the public, so you can see what I'm reading, where I'm at in the book, and what my thoughts are on it so far. Uh, my next book review is going to be about Iron Widow, which I just finished the audiobook for in the same weekend that I finished Tempest Take Me Home, actually. So I've got that coming up, and I'm almost finished with Parable of the Sower. So I'll have another book review for that very soon afterwards. I hope everyone is having a wonderful time reading independent stories. Please leave me any comments down in the comments section about ideas for renaming my indie author spotlight, as well as any indie book recommendations that you may have, whether it is someone you know's story that you're trying to help promote, whether it's your own story you're trying to help promote, or whether it's just happens to be a story that you read and loved and want other people to be able to read as well. Uh, that is all for me from me for now. And hopefully in the future I'll also be able to get a better webcam. This one is not doing it for me anymore, I tell you what. Anyway, I hope everyone is having a wonderful February, despite everything that is going on in our world. I don't want to think about that right this second. Go read indie books!